They threw me out of the house right on my high school graduation night, under the pouring June rain, with a single cold sentence that tore me in two. "You'll never amount to anything, you useless waste of space." I still remember the bone-chilling cold of that night. My graduation gown was soaked, clinging to my skin. My hands gripped the handle of my old suitcase, the only possession I was allowed to take. No backward glance from my parents. No goodbye from my younger sister, who stood behind the curtains watching me walk out into the cold streets. That night, I swallowed my tears and made a vow to myself. Survive first. Then, one day, I will come back. Not to beg, but to watch them crumble. 11 years later, I walked into the lavish ballroom at the Plaza Hotel. I was no longer that shivering, soaked 18-year-old girl. Today, I was draped in a custom-made black evening gown, my heels clicking a steady rhythm on the cold marble floor. My entrance turned the noisy room into dead silence. Champagne glasses paused in midair. Bianca, my golden younger sister, stood on the stage in a pristine white wedding dress. When she saw me, the plastered-on smile froze on her lips. Her eyes went wide with terror, as if she were seeing a ghost crawl back from hell to collect a debt. My parents stood next to her, their faces drained of blood. But the best part wasn't their fear. Julian, the handsome groom and a renowned doctor, narrowed his eyes at me, then turned to his wife with a puzzled look. He asked a simple question, one that was enough to detonate the time bomb this family had been trying to bury for a decade. "Honey, do you two know each other?" I smirked, a cold smile that didn't reach my eyes. "Oh, we know each other too well." The entire room froze. Before I tell you what Julian did right after that answer and the horrifying secret about to be exposed, let's pause for a second. What city are you watching this story from? And what time is it there? Leave a comment below, because trust me, what happens in the next 3 hours at this wedding is going to send shivers down your spine. Many people compare childhood to a safe haven, but for me, that house was like a cold morgue decorated with fake smiles. I learned my life's first lesson very early. In this family, love was a conditional luxury, and I could never afford the price tag. My father, Dr. Arthur, ran the family's private clinic with the ego of a man who believed his word was absolute truth. My mother, Evelyn, worshipped him like a living god. And Bianca? Oh, she learned early on that playing the victim was a full-time job with massive profits. She played the perfect princess, the soft voice, the teary eyes on command, and the ability to turn every problem into an opportunity to be coddled. I remember evenings standing in the shadows of the hallway, watching father patiently tutor Bianca, while mother brushed her hair before a piano recital. In my hands, I held a straight-A report card and calloused palms from working part-time after school, but they never looked at me once. That invisibility didn't kill me instantly. It corroded me slowly, like acid dripping onto steel. I started hoarding. I worked like crazy on night shifts, hiding every loose coin in a rusty tin box under my bed, my only ticket out. The peak of their cruelty came the day I received my acceptance letter to a prestigious university. I cried alone in the filthy parking lot behind the grocery store where I stocked shelves, and at home, they threw a massive party with cake and balloons just because Bianca passed a mediocre test. That night, I told myself, fairness is for the rich, survival is for me. People say time heals all wounds, but for me, time was a weapon. The years after leaving that hell weren't counted in days, but in endless night shifts at the hospital. I worked insanely hard, swallowing dry bread and studying voraciously between entering medical records. While Bianca slept on warm silk sheets bought with father's money, I was learning to survive amidst the smell of antiseptic and exhaustion. That was when Gabriel walked into my life. He was a resident with sharp eyes and a heart warm enough to melt the ice inside me. He didn't ask about the past. Perhaps he sensed the truth was locked behind a steel door. Together, we built our own empire, not through inheritance, but through sweat and intellect. And then Leo was born, a little angel, living proof that I could create a family completely different from the toxic cradle I had crawled out of. I had avoided everything related to the name Vanderbilt. I avoided their streets, their parties. But then, that damn invitation appeared. It sat on my mahogany desk, heavy as a verdict. Expensive cream paper, swirling gold lettering, the wedding of Bianca and Dr. Julian. They didn't want my blessing. I knew my mother. She sent it just to make sure I knew how far behind I had been left. But she was wrong. When my fingers traced the embossed letters, I didn't feel jealousy. I felt a cold urge. I wouldn't run anymore. I would walk in there, not as a prodigal daughter returning, but as a storm making landfall. If the past had a temperature, this ballroom was a furnace from hell wrapped in expensive velvet. Everything was too bright, too shiny, desperate to prove perfection. Crystal chandeliers threw gold light onto the marble floor, where guests in expensive suits drifted like puppets cut from fashion magazines. I stood at the entrance, smoothing my black evening gown, the color of mourning, but also the color of power. Gabriel placed a reassuring hand on my back, the only warmth in this cold sea of pretense. Leo, my little boy, held my hand tight, craning his neck to look at the towering wedding cake. "Mommy, do we know anyone here?" he whispered. "Just a bunch of ghosts, sweetheart," I thought. But I just smiled and squeezed his hand. We walked in. The conversation didn't stop completely, but it shifted like curtains in a draft. I felt the realization spreading like ripples. A few renowned doctors from the Central Hospital stopped mid-sentence when they saw me, Dr. Scarlett Vanderbilt. They knew who I was in the medical world, but my family did not. Bianca saw me first. She turned, wearing an expression I remembered clearly from childhood. Surprise melting into calculation, then freezing into absolute terror. Her sparkling white dress looked ridiculous facing off against my pitch-black gown. Her shoulders went rigid and her industrial smile twisted like a knotted ribbon. "Scarlet," she breathed out as if my name were a curse. Behind her, my parents froze. Dr. Arthur's jaw clenched tight, and my mother's hand flew to clutch the pearls at her neck, a gesture she always used when caught, as if strangling those pearls could rewrite history. Why are you here?" my mother whispered, her voice trembling. I gently held up the gold-plated invitation, my eyes sharp. I was invited. Wasn't I? Before my parents could utter a clumsy excuse, a tall figure stepped up beside Bianca. It was Julian, the groom, the man of the hour. He radiated the calm confidence typical of top surgeons, someone used to analyzing situations in a split second. Julian looked at his wife, saw her shoulders shaking violently, then turned to me with sharp, curious eyes. He didn't see a ghost or a failure the way my family did. He saw a powerful woman in a black dress, standing against his wife's family with overwhelming presence. Julian's gaze stopped at the invitation in my hand, where my name was formally printed, and then slid to the small name tag on my clutch. His brow furrowed. A logical connection was forming in the doctor's mind. "Honey?" Julian spoke up, his voice warm but carrying a clear question. "Why does this guest also have the last name Vanderbilt? Do you two know each other?" The question was soft, but its impact was stronger than a scream. It was like an invisible knife cutting the thin tension holding this play together. Bianca went stiff as a statue. The blood drained from Dr. Arthur and Evelyn's faces, leaving them wax white. Guests nearby slowed down, lowering their wine glasses. The air grew thick, waiting. I felt the old scar in my chest throb. Memories of the rainy night, the slamming door. But this time, it wasn't pain. it was power. I looked straight into Julian's eyes, then glanced at the terror-twisted faces of my family. I smiled. A slow, cold smile. Know each other? Oh, Dr. Julian, we know each other too well. Julian blinked, confusion clear on his face. And in that tiny moment of hesitation, I saw the first thread of the velvet curtain begin to unravel. Bianca crumpled the fabric of her wedding dress in her fist. My mother opened her mouth to speak, but her throat choked up. There was no script for this moment. Gabriel squeezed my hand, a silent support. "I'm fine," I whispered to my husband. And for the first time in 11 years it was true, because I felt the shift. No noise, no chaos, but irreversible, like pressure building under tempered glass. And deep down, I knew this was just the beginning of their nightmare. Bianca was the first to try and patch up the tearing script. She let out a shaky laugh, the kind of shrill sound she used to use to cover up when teachers caught her without homework. "It's just, we haven't seen each other in a long time," Bianca said, clutching Julian's arm like a drowning woman grabbing a log. "Just a small misunderstanding, darling." But Julian didn't return the touch. He didn't smile. His doctor's eyes narrowed, analyzing the situation with the coldness of a man holding a scalpel. He looked at the name tag on my chest, then at his wife, connecting dots he should have seen long ago. "Her last name is Vanderbilt," Julian said slowly, his deep voice clear in the silence. "So is yours. Why, did you never tell me you had a sister?" Bianca opened her mouth, then closed it. Panic caused her limited intelligence to evaporate completely. Finally, she uttered the stupidest possible answer. It was never convenient to bring up." That weak answer hung between us like toxic smoke. Gabriel squeezed my hand, and I saw several guests nearby stop pretending they weren't listening. The truth doesn't need to scream. It just needs to stand still and let the lie destroy itself. My mother, Evelyn, rushed in with the desperation of a cornered animal. "Scarlett doesn't like to talk about the past," she cut in, her voice shrill. "Today is your happy day, children. Let's focus on the wedding." But her hand was shaking so badly she spilled wine out of her glass. Julian saw it. He turned to Bianca, slower this time, his gaze scrutinizing her more thoroughly than ever. The trust in his eyes was cracking, making way for suspicion. I took a sip of wine, the cold champagne sliding down my throat. I didn't have to do a thing. Their clumsy cover-up was betraying them. The tension at the table reached Bianca's breaking point. Under Julian's X-ray stare, she couldn't keep playing the innocent wife. Shooting me a venomous glare, Bianca excused herself and walked quickly toward the hallway leading to the restrooms. I set my glass down, whispered to Gabriel, "It's time," and followed her. The VIP restroom hallway was deserted, the music from the ballroom sounding distant and distorted. As soon as I entered, Bianca lunged at me, gripping the edge of the marble sink as if it were a life raft. In the mirror, her face no longer held the haughtiness of a bride, but the pathetic look of a scammer about to be exposed. "Why are you doing this?" Bianca hissed, her voice cracking with panic. "Can't you let me have one happy day? Why appear right now?" I leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, looking at her with cold pity. "I didn't do anything, Bianca. I just came to a wedding I was invited to. It's your lies that are killing you, not me." Bianca spun around, eyes wild. "You don't understand. Julian, he thinks I'm the only one. I told him I was the one who carried the family clinic all these years. I told him you ran away because of drugs, because you were insane." The confession pouring from her mouth made the air heavy. It turned out it wasn't just my existence. She had stolen my entire life. She had taken my sleepless nights, my efforts running the clinic while our parents traveled, and turned them into her own trophies to trick Julian, a prestigious man. "You built this marriage on the corpse of my reputation?" I asked, my voice dropping dangerously low. If I didn't, they would look at you, not me, Bianca screamed, tears smearing her perfect makeup. You were always smarter, more capable. I had to do it to survive. She grabbed my arm, nails digging into my skin. Please, don't say anything out there. Don't destroy my life. I brushed her hand off, dusting my sleeve as if I had touched something filthy. I haven't said a word, Bianca, but you forgot one thing. The truth has a habit of finding its own way into the light. I turned and walked away, leaving her shaking in her own isolation. But neither of us knew the final act was waiting right outside that door. When we returned to the ballroom, the atmosphere had shifted completely. Whispers died down as the silhouette of my powerful black dress glided through. We had just sat down at the VIP table when an older guest, Dr. Sterling, the director of the prestigious hospital where Julian worked, walked over to raise a toast. Julian, you are a lucky man, he boomed, his voice full of admiration directed at Bianca. I heard your wife single-handedly managed the family clinic for 5 years while her parents were away, and graduated from Stanford's prestigious medical management program, a woman of both beauty and talent. The smile on Bianca's lips hardened like dry plaster. She stammered, sweat beading on her forehead. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, doctor. But Julian didn't smile. He turned, facing his bride directly, his eyes cold and sharp like a scalpel looking for a place to cut. Stanford? Julian asked, his deep voice echoing terrifyingly in the silence of the table. Which specialized program did you say you studied there? Which professor guided you? Dr. Sterling here has been a visiting lecturer there for the past 5 years. Why doesn't he remember you? Bianca opened her mouth, then shut it. The silence stretched until it was suffocating. My mother, Evelyn, tried to dive in to save the situation with desperation. She just took a short course. Today is a happy day. Let's not talk shop, Julian. Don't interrupt, Evelyn. Julian brushed her off without looking, his eyes still pinned on his wife. You told me you were the only one who stayed, that your sister ran away due to insanity, leaving you alone to manage the business. Turned to me, his eyes no longer holding suspicion, but a painful realization. And you? Your name appears on old administrative records, on staff training logs from 10 years ago that I accidentally found. Why? I placed my wine glass on the marble table, a soft but decisive clink. I looked straight into his eyes and told the brutal truth. Because I was the one running that place, Julian. Bianca never did anything but sit at the reception desk and paint her nails. She didn't go to Stanford. She stole my life, my sweat, and my tears to weave a fairy tale for you. The room held its breath. Bianca's perfect mask shattered into pieces right in front of hundreds of guests. She was no longer the glamorous bride, but exposed as a pathetic identity thief, naked under the blinding spotlight. Dr. Arthur roared, ready to lunge at me like a cornered wounded beast. Don't listen to her. She's lying to ruin the ceremony. But before he could touch me, the ballroom doors opened again. No police, no handcuffs, no sirens. Just a middle-aged man in a tailored gray suit, carrying a worn leather briefcase, walking in with the air of an executioner. His appearance made Dr. Arthur freeze on the spot, his face drained of blood. Evelyn swayed, clutching the table to keep from collapsing. Bianca let out a choked sob, small and broken like crushed glass. I didn't move. I didn't smile. I knew this man. It was the chief inspector from the Medical Oversight Board who had been quietly tracking irregularities in the Vanderbilt Clinic's financial records for the past 6 months, based on leads I had personally provided. This is a private party, Arthur hissed, his voice trembling with desperation. The inspector replied, his tone flat and cold, like reading an obituary. I'm not here to party, Mr. Vanderbilt. I'm here to serve an emergency suspension order and announce a full audit of your clinic regarding allegations of health insurance fraud and falsification of medical records. He held out a thick envelope. No one in my family dared to take it. Finally, I stepped forward. I took the envelope with 2 fingers, then gently placed it into my father's violently shaking hand. "You should open it, Father," I whispered, my voice echoing in the deadly silence of the room. After all, the evidence inside is real. I was the one who found it back when I was working for free for you. Remember? The room was so quiet I could hear the paper rustling in his hands. Julian looked at me, his eyes filled with respect mixed with deep regret. And Bianca? She collapsed completely onto her chair, her magnificent wedding dress now looking like a white shroud wrapped around a walking corpse. I didn't feel victory. I felt the final chain falling off. Julian sighed, a heavy sound carrying the shattering of every illusion. He looked at Bianca, crumpled in the chair like a pile of scrap fabric, then turned to me. His eyes held no scrutiny, only belated regret and painful respect. "Do you two know each other?" He repeated his initial question, but this time it wasn't a query, but a bitter confirmation. I smiled, a smile as light as a blade grazing skin. "Too well. And now, so do you." The party ended in a dead silence that no music could save. Guests quietly slipped away, leaving the Vanderbilt family stranded amidst the ruins of their reputation and lies. I took Gabriel's hand, led Leo out of the ballroom, our footsteps echoing on the cold stone. I didn't look back. That feeling wasn't victory. It was freedom. The next morning, the clinic investigation escalated into a medical scandal that hit the front pages. A week later, Julian filed for annulment. He sought me out, not to try and fix things, but to find closure. He apologized for believing the fake version of me they had created. I accepted the apology, not because he deserved it, but because I no longer needed to carry any debris from that past. My family didn't collapse instantly. They rotted away slowly in social isolation. Bianca disappeared from high society, branded as a fraud. My parents lived out their days in the torment of people who bet everything on the golden child and lost it all. I don't forgive them. I don't hate them anymore either. I simply let them become what they always deserved to be. An old, dusty chapter that I closed and threw away long ago. Sometimes justice doesn't need to roar. It's the absolute silence when you walk away whole, leaving the truth to crush those who tried to break you. I built a life they can't touch, a family they can't rewrite, and a future that belongs only to us. If you found this ending satisfying and believe karma always finds its way back, hit that subscribe button right now. We'll be bringing you more shocking stories exposing lies and deception. Don't forget to share this video if you want to see more villains pay the price.